Oh, what a hard pick.
Welcome back to the Bird Rights Podcast. This is our first episode in, I think, 17 or 18 years. Um, but it's draft season. We tend to come back for draft season because this is when we're have the least sports and the most to talk about with sports wise. So today I'm joined by Zach as my fellow mock drafter. We're going to mock draft today, and Jason as the occasional commenter, part-time listener. But not really much to go over here. We're just going
Hey,
to dive right into this mock draft. I'm going to be taking the odd numbers. Zach will be taking the even numbers, and we're going to kind of collaborate on the Ravens picks because this is a Baltimore area podcast after all. All right, we're starting the draft, and at the first one, I have a really tough decision between Jeremiah Love and Sonny Styles, but I think I'm going to have to go with Fernando Mendoza. I
yep.
don't even want to talk about that because everyone's talked about it to death. He is a little bit, maybe a little bit more polished. Alex Smith coming out of school. I'm very confident he's going to be good. Also, fairly confident he's not going to be special, but that's okay. You can win with the 12th best quarterback in the league, and I think that's kind of what he's destined to be.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with that. I feel like he's a pretty easy lock to be like a solid starter for a while in the league. And I feel like he has a really high floor as far as some of the draft, like the quarterbacks taken in the past few drafts in the first round. I think he's kind of proven himself as like a one of one leader almost. He's a one of one personality as well, but like as far as somebody you want to represent your franchise, I feel like he's that guy that you would envision. And he's got a rocket arm. He is, a big, tall, sturdy presence in the pocket, and he can move around in the pocket as well. Like
Yeah.
people might say he doesn't have very much athleticism. He's a slower guy, and you know, he's gonna get contained by some really good pass rushers, which is gonna happen to everybody. But I feel like he can definitely move around in the pocket. He's got good presence, and yeah,
Yeah.
like
My
you said,
favorite.
it's just been talked about a lot, man. I mean, he's
Yeah.
basically a far and away lock for the first overall
Yeah.
pick.
My favorite comp I've heard for him, which I heard the other day, was a a more sound decision making Joe Flacco, and I love that. I thought that was kind of a good. It's
Yeah,
like he has a bigger arm than you think. He can kind of move a little bit, and he's a huge dude. People underestimate
huge.
how
Yeah.
big he is. He's a 6'5", true 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". I'm not sure exactly where he is in there, but he is he's going to surprise some people with the juice on his arm. He's not going to be, running around like crazy, but he can move a little bit. So,
And I
I think
mean,
the Raiders are in a
yeah,
pretty good
like
spot.
I agree. I agree. And like you saw like some of those things that people kind of undermine him for in when he put it on display in the national championship. I mean, that run he had to, kind of put the dagger into the game and, lunge over the goal line.
Hmm.
I mean, you have to be a crazy athlete to just be able to do that. And just because he's not super quick on his feet doesn't mean he can't still, break a tackle or two or, get a couple extra yards after making, contact with the linebacker. So I think he's going to be a really good player.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the Raiders obviously need a quarterback. They're really trying to build that offense, and it already seems like they're trying to build it around him and Ashton Genty. So I think that that's going to be a great pick for them.
Yep. All right. We can move on to the
Um,
Jets and you at two.
yeah. So the Jets are in a bit of a little spot here because obviously they do need a quarterback. And, they traded for Geno Smith, and he can definitely hold the line for another year just to try and get to 27 because that draft is supposed to be pretty generational. Um, but Fernando Mendoza is off the board. So you kind of look and see, okay, we do still have a lot of holes. Let's just probably take the best player available or somebody with the highest upside possibly at a possible high impact position. And if I'm thinking, if I'm the GM of the New York Jets, I'm probably thinking to go edge here. And I know he's gotten a lot of knock on him because of, stuff that happened to the combine and the measurements. And I know this is probably a reach for some people, but I'm going to take Ruben Bain with the second pick
All right.
to
I
New York Jets.
I do have a question. Do we want to do I think you're going this way. Are we doing what we think they should do or are we doing projecting outwards?
I'm doing what I do.
Okay. I think that's
So
good.
what
We
I
can
think would
yeah.
be for the best like fit for the team.
All right.
like what I think would be the best pick for the team. Yeah.
I think that's more fun, and I think that's right. And I kind of would lean a similar way to you there. I think Bane is the best edge in this class.
Yeah. And like I get it. He has like never before seen short arms for an edge rusher. There has been literally zero statistical success in history from somebody with arms
It,
as short as
it's like
his
Melvin
at the edge
Ingram, and that's
position.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the comps he gets a lot are, like you said, Melvin Ingram, Brandon Graham. I've seen James Harrison. And
Harrison's the one that it feels like to me. He feels like James Harrison to
it
me.
does. It does. And it makes a lot of
He
sense
plays like
because
James Harrison.
you would have thought that James Harrison, like, he has super short arms, but you never would have like realized them like how short they were because he was undrafted, never went to the combine. There might not even be public measurements about how like his wingspan and all that. So they have probably a very similar profile. He's a little bit of a different play style than James Harrison, but I think he can be just as productive at his, ceiling. Um, it's a high ceiling, obviously, because Defense Player of the Year, James Harrison. Um, but I think he's just a really tough, physical pass rusher that also has, really good anticipation and really good, speed off the line of scrimmage. And I think on top of being a really, really great power rusher and having a really great bag of tools that they can go to against the tackle, I think he's also a really good run defender,
Hmm.
which, when you look at a guy like David Bailey, who's an elite pass rushing talent, kind of leaves a little bit to be desired though, because he's not as good of a run defender. Bane's kind of more of the full package. You're just the one knock I've seen on him are the arms, and I get it. Like I said, I get it, but I'm just gonna bet on him being a good player and continuing to be a good player like he has been. Hasn't affected him yet. And
Yeah.
obviously the NFL is a big step up, but I mean, he was dominating in college last year, and obviously we saw how big of an impact he had in the playoffs. And I just think it would be a good pick for the Jets, high impact position, and I think he would be a really good fit for that defense. So,
Yeah. It's funny. I coming off, the Ravens whole Max Crosby, Trey Hendrickson debacle, I was watching the Miami defense because I wanted to watch Bain and
mhm.
Messidor the other day. And what really stood out to me is those guys, both of those edges really, but Bain is Messidor maybe even be better at it, but Bain attacks in the run game in a way a lot of these pass rushers
Yes.
doesn't. He is sort of standing up in anticipation and setting a hard edge or attacking down inside the tackle to stop a run early. Whereas some of these pass rushers, David Bailey, I think might be the worst culprit of this. I know Cassius Howell really really bad about it. They're
That too.
waiting for
Yeah.
they're waiting for the runs to come to them as opposed to getting downhill towards the line and attacking like that.
Hmm.
So I think Bain is going to be a really really good player. I don't know that he is going to be like a special game wrecker or anything, but if
No, but
not, yeah, Matt,
I think
Brian
he's going to
Burns
be,
isn't, but Brian Burns level player, like that's a really really good
yeah,
player.
like a high level impact player for like a long career, I'd
Yeah,
say. And like you said, maybe like all pro second team 1 or 2
yeah.
years, but never really reaching the pinnacle,
Edge,
but
yeah,
being a
edge
really good
eight,
starter. Yeah.
edge eight for
Yeah.
like a long time. Yeah.
Which the Jets would be thrilled with that outcome, I feel like.
All right. And now I'm going to do some fun here. Going to Arizona, since we said this is a what we would do mock,
What would you do? Yeah.
um, positional value be damned. I'm taking who I think is the best player in the class or second best player in the class at a position of need, and that's Sonny Styles. Um, I
I like
I
that.
I don't think we're going to see an inside linebacker go that high. I think if the board fell this way, they'd go O line or maybe edge rusher in Arvell Reese and think he can convert there. But I think Sonny Styles is about as clean of a linebacker prospect you can get. He's got
Hmm.
insane measurables as far as the speed and the jumping and the athleticism. He really has more of a profile similar to, honestly, he tested more like how I expected Kyle Hamilton and Derwin James to test. Those
Yeah.
guys ended up running slower, but
Hmm.
he ends up being he's the size of a linebacker. This isn't like an Isaiah Simmons situation where you're worried about
It's not. Yeah.
it's not. He's definitely a linebacker, but he moves like a defensive back. He's going to allow you to kind of I think you're going to be able to do some creative stuff with him where you can have two other linebackers aside him because he's so fast and then you can fit the run that way where you're still kind of playing as if he's the nickel defender, even though he's a linebacker. So
Hmm.
I think with what that allows you to do, I think it just gives, I think those sort of hybrid, and there's another one in this class. I'm curious to see where he ends up going with Downs, but those sort of hybrid defenders that are linebackers, nickel defenders, kind of safety, like those guys end up really unlocking a lot of these modern defenses. And you know, the Chargers with before Minter left with Derwin
Hmm.
and then with Imanwari in Seattle, Hamilton in Baltimore. I know it's different because he's a linebacker, but he's that kind of player. I think he either ends up being that kind of joker player or just like Fred Warner. And either way, I'm happy taking that player at number 3.
Yeah. Yeah. He has been getting so much love through and like now past the combine, and he deserves that and more. I feel like he is, like you said, like when you think of a modern linebacker prospect, a modern coverage linebacking prospect, like this is the guy. Like this is what the dictionary definition of that would
Yeah.
be. I feel like the whole like safety kind of Kyle Hamilton, Derwin James type of deal. It's actually interesting. I don't know if you knew this, but he actually started his career at Ohio
Yeah.
State as a safety and then transitioned to linebacker. So it really does make sense why he's so skilled in coverage. And I would be a lot more concerned about a player like this who converted from a safety to a linebacker if they weren't as, reliable as a tackler, but
Hmm.
Styles has been one of the most reliable tacklers in college in the past. I don't even like I can't name like people I'm thinking of, but I feel like he has been one of the more reliable tacklers in college in the past few years. And
He didn't have a missed tackle until they played I think Miami in the playoff.
that's just
Not a single missed
ridiculous.
tackle.
Like
Yeah.
in the entire regular season, he didn't have a single missed tackle. And again, like for a guy who's so good in coverage, the one thing you're going to want to ask is, can you make those tackles as well? And he definitely can. So I think that he's as much of a lock as any player in this class to, be a really high level player. And I think that he has a chance to be the best inside linebacker in the league in 5 years from now.
I think I think quicker. I think we're end up looking I think once Warner falls off a little bit,
I was
I
gonna
think
say
he
after
yeah.
Warner and
Yeah.
like obviously he's the pinnacle right now, but it's already kind of a fall off from there. And Styles is
Yeah.
kind of like that next Warner guy that we're all thinking is going to be like that. So
Yeah.
I definitely can see it happening. Yeah.
All right, on to number
So
4, Tennessee.
for Tennessee, um, I'm also going to say positional value be damned. And I've actually seen this guy get mocked here a lot recently,
I think he's
post
going here.
combine. And the more I think about it, you know, the more it makes sense to me. And I've always been super high on Jeremiah Love. And I've from the beginning of my personal scouting process, I've always kind of had him at the top of my board as far as prospects go entirely in this draft. I think that this guy is a pretty generational like prospect, and in a class that's kind of below average and short on a lot of talent. This guy kind of sits up at the top of the mountain as far as talent in the draft class, and I feel like he's been getting compared to a lot of the other top, running back talents to come out in the past 10 years. You think Saquon Barkley, you think Ezekiel Elliott, you think Leonard Fournette, you think Ashton Genty. And I think he absolutely deserves to be sharing the names, like sharing the spotlight with those names as far as draft prospects go. Um, and from Tennessee's side, I feel like it just makes more and more sense to me the more I think about it. In their history in Tennessee, you think about the success they've had, and you think of the running backs. You think of Eddie George, you think of Chris Johnson, and you think of Derrick Henry, and you associate those guys with when the Tennessee Titans were kind of relevant. So I feel like it could make sense with running back being a big hole on the roster. You have Tony Pollard, but after that, I mean, Tyjae Spears,
Yeah,
solid, but
I think they'd like to get out of the Pollard contract. I think
I
they can
completely
cut that.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to take a guy like Love, who I think one is absolute, I'm certain he's going to be good in the league. And he's
Yeah.
just an extremely, he does everything you want for a running back. I mean, maybe you knock him for the pass blocking or the run block, or sorry, the pass blocking a little bit, the pass pro. But outside of that, as far as with the ball in his hands, I mean, this guy is as fast a running back as we've seen as far as his level of talent. I mean, this guy won the Doak Award, best running back in the country last year. Only had 199 carries, might I add. So he hasn't gotten like this massive workload that maybe like a Jonathan Taylor did
Yeah, because
in
he had
college
competition with the Jadarian Price too. So
with
he was
Jadarian
yeah.
Price.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And he's got the home run speed. He breaks tackles with ease. He had 60 forced missed tackles in 2025. He's a great pass catcher, and he's been successful in this Notre Dame offense for years.
Yeah.
And I don't know, my comp for him was it's a little, I don't know if he's exactly like this, but I've seen the Jahmyr Gibbs comp. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I personally think he's more of like a Reggie Bush,
Mm,
maybe like a Travis Etienne. I mean, again, I can see the Jahmyr Gibbs, but I just think Gibbs' speed is like another
yeah.
level. So, but again, I think it makes a lot of sense for Tennessee. You got Cam Ward, you got your quarterback, and to take the best player on the board in my eyes here would be perfect for that offense, would give them another weapon for that offense, both in the pass game and the run game. It would take some stress off of Cam Ward's shoulders, to be able to hand it off to Jeremiah Love 15
Yeah.
times and then also dump it down to him 4 or 5 times a game. So
Yep.
I think it would be a really good fit for both. And again, higher than Genti, I believe, right? Because Genti
Seven
was
or eight.
Genti 4, 7 or 8,
No.
yeah.
Yeah.
So higher than Genti, and although I think Genti might have been a better
I think I
prospect
like
as a
Love a little bit
pure
more, but
runner.
you're splitting hairs there.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's
Yeah.
do you prefer the pure runner or the do it all type of guy?
Yeah.
And it's really just a preference at that point, but still, he deserves to go this high and to be in these type of
Yeah.
conversations.
Jason, you raised your hand. Were you trying to chime in here?
Hey guys, first of all, let me say I love this pick.
Hey, me
And,
too.
s- and second of all, I actually really agree with the pick. I think it makes sense because you have a defensive coach now, and now if you
Hmm.
develop a run game, you get back to the identity of what old Titans football used to be.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I know it's being mocked more recently after the combine that he's going to Tennessee a lot, but I don't think it, I think it speaks a lot to the player that he is, but I also think it's speaking to, it makes sense to the makeup of the team. You know,
Hmm.
Yeah.
Kansas City won 3 Super Bowls and they did it with a mediocre run game. But what does it look like if you give, a very talented quarterback a running back through their whole start of their career? I think it'll be interesting to
Yeah.
see.
I think so long. Yeah. I think the Giants might want him. The Commanders might want him. I think the
Hmm.
teams are. I think you're gonna have to jump. I think Arizona would love to move down, and I think you're gonna have to jump the Titans to get him. So I'd be curious if somebody's willing to do that. Um, but I think so long as Tennessee thinks they can build out the interior of their offensive line through the rest of the draft, then this is a great pick. Um,
And this would be
and
the draft to do that, I believe.
yeah, I think they
So,
do. I think it's. I think through pick 140 or so, there's some
hmm.
guys who can compete for starting interior offensive line spots. Um, and the top of the O line class isn't great. Like, I know a lot of people want him to go defense here. Maybe they could, right? Obviously, Arvell Reese would be a
Reese,
great pick here.
yeah.
Yeah, but I have no problems with Jeremiah Love.
And then
Um,
also, real quick, just the kind of what Jason was saying, it makes sense to do this for Cam Ward's career as well. Just like you're really just giving him that kind of, I don't want to say sidekick, but it takes a lot of pressure off his shoulders. And for a guy who's, you want to get that, as much stress off of the quarterback's shoulders as possible. You want them to give him as much space as possible to develop and get comfortable with his game. And I feel like Jeremiah Love would absolutely do that. He's going to take so much attention away from the defense, and it's going to make Cam Ward's life easier, which is going to
Hmm.
allow for him to develop a lot easier as well.
Yeah.
I'm
I
thinking
think it's
about Jared Goff starting with Todd Gurley early in his
yeah.
career.
Hmm.
That was an
hmm
interesting comparison. I don't know if that works out.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I thought of it as it came up. If this does happen, we're gonna end up with the last two number one quarterback prospects and the last two number one running back prospects paired up on teams, right? Well, the
hmm
Titans with Love and Ward, and then the Raiders with Genty and Mendoza. So, um, it would be interesting, and I do think that I think this actually has gained quite a bit of steam, and I think it could be the way they go. All
Yeah.
right. On
Number
to
five,
the New York Giants, number five. They could go a number of ways here. I'm
John
almost certain,
Harbaugh.
yeah, John Harbaugh, our old friend, stealing all our players. Um, I think they almost certainly take an Ohio State player here, whether that's Carnell Tate, maybe. Arvell Reese is interesting. I don't know that they need the
hmm
edge rushers,
Yeah.
but Arvell Reese, you could do some weird, creative, funky stuff with him. But and he might be the best player on the board in my opinion, but I don't think that makes a ton of sense.
hmm
Um, I think this is a really weird way for the board to fall. Like I don't think it would fall this way because I don't think Styles and Bain are off the board in the real draft. And I
hmm
think they'd love to take Styles or Love. But because the board has fallen this way, I'm debating between Downs and Arvell Reese. Mm, you know what? I think I'm just going to go with Caleb Downs because I think John Harbaugh and Denard Wilson, who was in the Ravens building for a long time, um, as much as some of the Harbaugh stuff got out of hand late with the Ravens, he does deserve immense credit for him and Wink Martindale in 2017 kind of changing the way defense has been played, right? They
hmm
sort of birthed what Mike McDonald and Jesse Minter sort of ended up evolving. And a key piece of that has been these nickel corners that can stop the run. And
Yep.
Caleb Downs is a perfect scenario of that. He's not quite the prospect Kyle Hamilton is because he's not the size, but he is a sort of, Cooper DeJean's a weird example because he's more of a corner, but he is sort of this joker nickel player who's not the athlete Sonny Styles is. So, like I said, I think they'd like to take Styles because they could use him in kind of a similar way. Um, but you can absolutely play Downs in that nickel, and you can stay in nickel all game and stop the run that way. And everything that needs to be said about Downs, he's a incredibly smart player, incredible instincts.
Yes. Yes.
He
Yes.
finds his way to the ball. He's a great tackler when he gets to the ball. He has good ball skills when he's in the air. He's about as polished as a safety prospect as
hmm
it comes outside of being a little bit undersized. But in a weird class where there's not a whole lot of blue chippers at blue chip positions, I'm okay taking Caleb Downs. I think we have taken, these first five picks. We've just said, you know, we're taking the best players. We don't care where they play. If they're in a position of need, we'll take them. So I
hmm
have no problem going there with the Giants.
Yeah. I completely agree. And like I was just giving praise to Jeremiah Love about how good he is. Caleb Downs is right there with him as far as a high level prospect in this draft class. And he's not as much of an explosive, in your face type of prospect like Love is as far as his tape. But Downs is, as you said, as polished a rookie that you're going to find in any draft class. I mean, he's had NFL. Obviously, he has a brother in the NFL, Josh Downs, but he's had NFL players telling him that he's going to love playing in the league. And
Yeah.
to have that come from guys knowing that you are going to thrive and enjoy like playing in this league, it's such a positive sign and it's a super high honor to just get that as a college player. But I mean, he does everything you want from the safety position. And, like you said, with the IQ and the ball skills and the instincts, it's just really the full
Yeah.
package. And
Screams
I
Eric
think
Weddle to me.
yeah, yeah. I compared him to he's like a Brian Branch, a Buda Baker.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah,
little bit bigger than Buda Baker, but similar play styles. He's
yeah.
just he's flying around the field. And I don't know. I think he's one of the better run defending safeties coming out of college we've seen in a long time. And
Yeah.
for that to be a guy of his size, it it's really just I really just think he's going to be an awesome player in the league. And like I said, the full package. And I think this is a great pick for them, for the Giants. They need a safety. They can pair
Yeah.
someone up with Javon Holland, and it makes a lot of sense from the Harbaugh standpoint as well. Like you had mentioned, it's seeming like he's trying to bring in a lot of the same, pieces that the Ravens had, kind of sort of, bringing in a linebacker and Tremaine Edmonds and bringing Ricard over, or like, Likely and all those things. He's trying to do what he was doing in Baltimore and adding a really high level safety to do that Kyle Hamilton type role in the nickel would definitely make sense.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
yeah.
On to
Number
Cleveland.
6.
To you.
Cleveland, 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 Cleveland. This is for you. This might be a little bit out of left field, especially with how the
Man,
board's
why did we end up in
falling.
Ohio, man?
Man, Ohio. Actually, I changed my mind. I was debating between someone who might have been out of left field and Carnell Tate at this position in the draft. It was between Carnell Tate for me and Monroe Freeling,
Yep,
the left
that's what I
tackle out of
thought.
UGA.
Yep.
And those are the two big positions you kind of think of right off the bat for Cleveland is wide receiver and left tackle. And, I'm not sure if Carnell Tate will be here when the draft actually comes. I think he might go to, like you said, New York. He might go to Tennessee. Um, and I really do think that he is worthy of a pick this high. And I think Cleveland absolutely as a whole that needs to be filled in their wide receiver room. I mean, they have Jerry Jeudy as their wide receiver one. They just lost David Njoku to free agency. He hasn't signed anywhere yet, but it doesn't look like he's coming back. You've got Harold Fannin, who's probably going to be a really good tight end. And besides that, your pass catchers are just about nothing. And Carnell Tate, for the past 2 to 3 years at Ohio State, has been a contributor, has kind of stepped up a level each year, but has also kind of remained a steady like force for that Ohio State offense and in that wide receiver room. And I just don't think you bet against an Ohio State wide receiver, man. I mean, I just think they're about as a sure thing as a prospect can go as far as the
Hmm.
high level guys in the first round. And I mean, Tate's 6'3". He is one of the best contested catch artists coming out of college we've seen in a while. Um, I mean, he is a true like X receiver. Leave him out wide against the best corner, throw it up to him, and you're confident he's gonna come down with that ball. He's a lot like George Pickens, kind of like T. Higgins. A
Yeah.
guy that you really trust throwing the ball up to in those big moments, and him coming down with the ball. And I think that his route running is also really high level as well. And to be able to pair the contested catchability with the route running, he's going to be open a lot because of that route running. But then, when they throw it up to him in a contested catch scenario, you're also confident he's going to come down with that
Yeah.
ball. Um, and like I said, Cleveland's got this big hole wide receiver. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I think the comp I used and somebody else used, I don't know, I don't want to steal it, but it's Devontae Smith, but a little bigger, where it's kind of
Hmm.
the route running's better than you expect, but he's just really good at the catch point. Um, he's not a special wide receiver prospect, right? This isn't the guy playing opposite him. This isn't Jeremiah Smith, but it is an A minus level wide receiver prospect.
Yep.
Where in this draft class, taking him 6 is no problem. All right,
Absolutely. Yeah.
on to the Washington Commanders here. Again, a
Hmm.
lot of the guys they're usually mocked are already gone. Um, you know what? This isn't really a position of need now because they just brought in Odafe Owe. I think
Yep.
they also signed Charles Omenihu and Caleb Chason.
Caleb on Chase on to 12, 1 million, 12 year,
It,
1 year, 12 million.
yeah, so it's an awkward fit. But with that said, I I still want to go Arvell Reese because I think he's by so far the best player on the board.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't think you can let signing Caleb Chason to a 1 year deal
No, no.
convince you to not take a player like this. So
No.
because of that, I'm going to go Arvell Reese. And you can even use him at inside if you want to a little bit.
Yeah.
You can kind of move him all around. He's a little bit of a high. I don't know that he's quite as sure a thing as you'd like for a player this high. It's a little bit
Hmm. He's a
Trayvon.
question mark.
Yeah, it's a little bit Trayvon Walker-y where it's toolsy, and I think Trayvon Walker's turned into a nice player. He wasn't
Hmm.
worthy of the number one pick, but he's a nice player. I think Arvell Reese is a little bit more polished than that as a rusher, but he played a lot inside. I really don't know where he'll play at the NFL level, but I will say I kind of think the floor is like worst case scenario he moves to inside and is Roquan Smith or something like that, or maybe that's a little high, but worst case he moves inside and is Tremaine
And
Edmonds,
is a
right? Where he's
quality linebacker. Yeah.
yeah, I think Tremaine Edmonds is like
Yep.
a sort of big physical, can move, but isn't like the most agile guy. But I do think there's a world where he just ends up being a great pass rusher. So I think best player on the board. Um, it's not necessarily a need, but then again, I don't know what is. Not that the Commanders roster is perfect, but they signed like 20 dudes in free agency so that they didn't have
They
any
were big
specific.
spenders. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this list right now. Mariota, Rashad White, Jerome Ford, Traylon Burks, Van Jefferson, Chiga Conquo, Nick Algoretti, Andrew Wiley re-signed, Caleb on Chason, Charles Omenihu, Dafe Owe, Dietrich Wise, Tim Setto, Leo Chenal, Amik
Oh
Robertson,
my
Nick
God.
Cross. It's like, yeah, they signed like, and most of these deals are like some real money. They signed like 20 dudes. So I think the plan was not to have any dire needs.
Hmm.
And so because of that, I'll go with the guy who I think is the best player on the board.
Yeah. I think that that makes sense. And I do think that, worst case scenario, especially on this year, you're just going to have a really good pass rushing room. I mean, you bring in Odafe and like you
You
said, you
can't
bring
have
in
too many
Caleb on
guys,
Chase
man.
on.
You
You
can't
can't
have
have
too
too
many
many
guys.
guys. And again, it's kind of like you're taking stress off of Arvell Reese's shoulders, not putting as much on him as early on in his career. You're putting him in, kind of a rotational role where he can get, you know, snaps in positions where the team really likes him and thinks that
Yeah,
he's going to excel the most, which is going to help him, develop as well. And like you said, I mean, he is a little bit of a question mark. You're not totally sure what position he's going to play in the league. Off-ball linebacker, edge rusher. He's got serious skills at both of them. Um, but the Commanders would be happy to have him at either spot. And I don't know. My comp for him, I just want to note it, like make this note before we move on to the next pick. My comp for him, I've seen a lot of people, mention Micah Parsons. It's not that. It's Micah Parsons on Ozempic. That's what it is. Because
you just described Hassan Reddick.
yeah, yeah, Hassan Reddick was the name. I have Micah Parsons on Ozempic / Hassan Reddick.
Yeah,
So
Hey, Hassan Reddick, that first Eagles Super Bowl year went crazy.
awesome. He was an awesome player.
yeah,
He was a great pass rusher. Yeah. So Arvell Reese would be statistically kind of like Ruben Bain, statistically an outlier for his weight at an edge rusher position, but he is so quick and has crazy speed to power on his pass rush, and
yeah.
he plays bigger than he actually is.
Hmm.
So I think that would be a really good
Yeah,
pick for
I
them, and it's a
don't.
positioning
Yeah,
need.
I don't have run stopping concerns with him despite his size. Like I think he's not. I don't think it's
Definitely
gonna be.
not.
I don't
No.
think it's gonna be like a. I don't think he's gonna be. I'm gonna bring my old Ravens brain. He's not gonna be Jarrett Johnson setting a firm edge at 290 pounds,
No.
but he is. But he is gonna be fine. You can play him every down.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree.
All right, on to
All
New
right. So
Orleans.
number 8 here in New Orleans. Um, so New Orleans, honestly, they kind of lost some guys in free agency. Demario Davis no longer with the team. Cam Jordan, it doesn't look like he's going to re-sign. Alante Taylor, the cornerback, he left as well. You bring in Travis Achan. I said it right, I think.
I think it's like
ETN, or I
it's
don't know
like
if he was
it's no,
joking
it's
or
like
not, but
Etienne. It's like Etienne. It's like that kind of a
Travis
thing.
Etienne.
Yeah.
So you add to that running back room with another high quality player. Kamara's kind of coming down on the end of his career. He's
I
kind of
think he might
washed now.
retire. Yeah, I think he might
Yeah.
retire.
Um, it seems like they're gonna give Shuck a year as the
Yeah,
starter.
I think they are.
So I think that they should probably just look. I don't know at their best player available. Chase Young, a really great development story for them to have Chase Young be a really quality player. So, I was thinking maybe taking David Bailey, but I don't know. I feel like you have Chase Young, you have Carl Granderson, you have Brian Brzee, you have these guys in the defensive line that can already make a difference. Um, you lose Rasheed Rice, so maybe you go with Makai Lemon.
Yeah,
Um, I could maybe see that, but I think losing Alante Taylor, this maybe could be a little bit high, but I think I'm going to take Mansour Delane here at number 8. Um, and
I
I
don't think
think
that's
that
high.
I think that this corner room, after losing Taylor, it's Kool-Aid McKinstry who they spent a first round pick on, and after that, it's really concerning. I feel like I think that they could add some high level talent to that corner room, and I think that he's one of the best players in this class. He might not be my best player on the board, but Makai Lemon, I have higher than him, but there's some concerns with Lemon. And then also, do you want your top two receivers to kind of be on the smaller side with, you know, Chris Olave? Obviously, I feel like there's a highlight of him every other week getting absolutely clobbered. And Makai Lemon, who's kind of the opposite, he's a sturdy small guy, but again, you don't really have that big, jump ball threat X receiver. And that would make me a little bit hesitant this high. So I think I'm going to take Delane, the corner from LSU. I compared him to Quinyon Mitchell. They have kind of similar athletic profiles. Delane was really, really good in LSU last year. He transferred from Virginia Tech, and he is really, really excellent at tracking the ball. Like that's what jumps off the tape for me is, he makes plays on the ball more than any other corner I watched. Um, but he's also really physical when he's making tackles, which you love to see, especially from a corner that you're going to be taking at number 8. You don't want him to have some serious tackling concerns, and I don't think you're going to get that with Delane. But I just think he's a really twitchy player, whether it's, crashing on the ball to make a tackle or, breaking on a ball to make a pass deflection or even an interception. I think he's a twitchy player, and I think that he is a great player to take here and have kind of be the face of your corner and secondary, as far as a lockdown corner. So I think that that would be my pick here for New Orleans.
Yeah, I I absolutely think they could stand to take a corner here. I think Quincy Riley is their other outside corner right now. I think he was a fourth round pick last year.
Yeah.
Um, a player that's interesting, but again, not a player stopping you from taking someone like Mansour Delane.
And
Um,
Delane also, quick shout out, Archbishop Spalding, Maryland home and grown, class of 2021, I believe. But,
yeah,
he's close to here, rooting for the guy. He's a great
yeah. Then he
player.
stays in Louisiana there too. When
Yep.
he
Yep.
all right, all right,
There's the same thing going on with Carnell Tate staying in Ohio.
yeah,
Ohio. Yeah. Hmm.
all right,
Carnell can never leave Ohio Tate.
all right, all right. On to Kansas City. This board has fallen beautifully for them.
Yeah, it has.
I think obviously they are desperate at DB, but I think they can probably get something there at pick 29 that they got from the
Yep.
Rams.
Hmm.
Um, they would love an impact receiver. They would love an impact edge rusher, and all the receivers, Tyson or Lemon is very interesting, and then David Bailey is a very interesting option. I think this is maybe me leaning a little bit more into what they will do as opposed to what I would do. Although
Hmm.
I think at this price I can be get behind David Bailey, but I'm not the biggest David Bailey guy in the world.
Hmm.
But I do think at pick 9, he's a guy who's shown kind of in like his best reps, the sort of get off and bend is just kind of crazy. Um, at his very best, I think he ends up. I think his best tape is right up there with any of these pass rushers' best tape. Ironic, besides the Miami guys. Um, and I think they've been missing that sort of juice on the edge since I don't know who the last great edge rusher they had was. Maybe um, who was it? I'm Frank Clark, I guess, right? Like he
Frank
was
Clark. And then you think of
D Ford, I
Justin
guess.
Houston, D
Yeah,
Ford, Tamba Ali. Like,
yeah. I was gonna. So I kind of think with Chris Jones kind of moving into a new stage of his career, you know, um, They're oh God, I'm blanking on the guy. Karloftis is a good player, but he's not a game wrecker or a 10 sack every year kind of guy.
Hmm.
I think David Bailey could end up being sort of a I don't know. D Ford's kind of an interesting comp there. He's a little bigger than D Ford, but the sort of this speed rusher sort of technician on the edge.
Yep.
I will say he worries me at times. He can look stiff rushing the passer. Um, but that might just be because he played so many snaps in college. It's sometimes hard to tell with stuff like that because of how the speed of the game. So I think Kansas. I personally, I think I don't know if this is 100% what I would do, but I'm fairly confident. If this board falls this way, this is what Kansas City's going to do. And if it does, I'm sure he'll end up being a great player.
Yeah. Yeah. I think as far as purely rushing the passer, you could make an argument that he's the best one in this draft
Yeah.
class. Um, he is a ferocious pass rusher. I mean, this guy, you look at pictures of this guy, he has no drip on at all. Like this guy is ski mask, like shiesty, like menace to society when he comes on the football field. And you definitely want that from a guy who's rushing the passer, is for them to be kind of crazy and for them to, want to just nothing would please them more than getting that quarterback and sacking him. So
You mean to tell
he,
me they have three Super Bowls in the recent years and they're gonna have Pooh Shiesty on the edge?
this is
Yes.
in the bird rights mock draft, in the bird rights, future. This is what would happen with the
I'll
Chiefs.
tell you
So
what, I
yeah.
feel I feel a lot better than what I actually think is going to happen, which I think they're going to end up getting Ruben Bain, and that's going to drive me insane.
Yeah.
Oh man, he
That
can't
would
fall that
really
far.
I think he
that
will.
would really upset me, man. I would
I
be
think,
really
yeah.
because he will be so good for them.
To be clear, I don't think David Bailey, I don't know if he'll ever be an every down player. I think he's got real concerns stopping the run.
Hmm.
Um, But as speed rusher goes, he's great with his hands. He gets off the line faster than really anybody in this class. He can bend. He's got great bend more than anybody in this class. It's really impressive stuff when his pass rush moves look the way, and sort not even moves, just sort of getting to the quarterback and getting around the tackle with speed and with jump and bend. It's really impressive. But I don't know that he's first and 10. You think they might run. I think he could be kind of a liability, but that's fine. The Chiefs have the personnel to
Yeah.
scheme around that.
Yeah. I mean, you think of some of the names of those guys in the league right now. You think of
Trey Hendrickson's one of them.
Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, guys that are still going to make an impact. A guy that I've seen get comped to David Bailey a good bit is Nick Benito as well, who
Yeah.
one of the
Not
best
a
pass
run.
rushers in the league.
Yeah.
Is he an every
Ooh.
down player?
Eh.
I don't
He's getting
really
better
think
at
he
it, but he's not. He's
is,
not. He's not. He's certainly
but
not
he's
Max Crosby or Miles
he's
Garrett.
still one of the best players in the league, one of the
Yeah.
most impactful guys in the league. And David Bailey, I could definitely see going that career path.
Hmm.
Um, as far as his production in college, he has been absurdly productive. I mean, he's had a pressure rate above 20% for the past 3 years in his college career, which is crazy. He had 11 and a half sacks, I think, or maybe it was 13 and a half. I'm not sure. He had double digit sacks for Texas Tech this year, and Texas Tech had obviously the best defense in college football. So many guys are going to get drafted from that defense this year, and David Bailey's going to be the best one, I believe. And I just, like you said, I think he's going to be a great pass rusher. And even if this doesn't happen for the Chiefs, I do think that this would be a home run for them to get a
Yeah.
pass rusher and a third down guy. And especially because Karloftis, I feel like he's more of the every down type of
He's
player
a
you'd want. And
fundamentally sound. He's gonna stop the
yeah,
run. He's gonna get 7.5 sacks.
and then you can bring in a guy like David Bailey on those big third downs to kind of, really
Yeah,
rev up that pass rush and get to the quarterback. And he'll be fresh in those type of scenarios too. So I think
yeah,
that'd be a great pick.
yeah. I feel a lot better about taking him at 9 than I would at 2, where he might go. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I want a
Hmm.
guy who's gonna play every down if I'm picking him at number 2 overall. But at 9, then you're getting like a pass rush specialist. I'm cool with it. All right, on to
Hmm.
Cincinnati.
On to Cincinnati. And this board has fallen kind of interestingly
It's a weird one,
for
man. I think they want to go
Cincy.
defense, but
Yeah.
I don't know that
I
that makes a
feel
lot
like
of
they want
sense.
Downs so bad.
They do.
They really they want Downs. or
Styles.
Styles to
Yeah.
somehow fall to this pick, and they would be over the moon. And us as Ravens fans would be really upset because they'd be getting a home run pick. Um,
Yeah, that going along with all the other stuff they've done on their defense, I think could really transform it, but not how it falls here.
yeah. And I don't know, because of this falling in a little bit of an interesting way, you could maybe lean offensive line here. Um, and kind of, maybe you could take a Spencer Fano or a Monroe Freeling. But I did see that the Bengals just recently extended Orlando Brown, so that kind of shores up that left tackle spot. And they took Amarius Mims, I don't know if that was last year or the year before,
Yeah,
with a high pick as well.
I think most of these guys project to play guard anyway. Maui Goa can play tackle, but he could
Yep,
also play guard.
Wasn't
yep,
Mims was the year before because Shamar Stewart was last year, right?
yeah,
was last year, yes.
Mims was 2 years
Hmm.
ago. Now I will say Mims, the tape's bad right now, so I think they'll keep giving him some time, but he doesn't look like a very good player.
Yeah, there's definitely some question marks there as far as him being a long-term fit, but I think there are still some players at positions that they may be more intrigued with. And I think here I'm going to go with Jermod McCoy
Oh,
out of
interesting.
Tennessee at number 10. Um, I think that this could be higher than people think right now, especially coming off of the ACL tear, which, yeesh. I mean, it is definitely a concern. Um, he hasn't played since 2024. So it's been over a year and a half since we've seen the guy on the field. Um, but that film from 2024, the sophomore, he was absolutely outstanding for Tennessee. And I'm just going to believe that he can come back from this ACL tear and continue to produce at that level. And if he does that, it's going to be a home run hit at this pick for Cincinnati. They're going to be getting a true lockdown number one corner. And I'm confident that he can come back from this ACL tear. Um, Look, he was really, really twitchy as a maneuverer in college in that 2024 film. He was really outstanding in man-to-man coverage, but he was a really good fluid mover and had high, kind of feel and zone coverage as well. So he was kind of the full package as far as coverage went, that you'd want to see for a corner. He was a really great with coverage speed as far as keeping up with those wide receivers down the sideline or on the routes across the field. And that's kind of the thing that the ACL scares me about is that and kind of the twitchy, making a play on the ball aspect of his game, which kind of leaves something to be questioned about with the man-to-man coverage. But I think he's still going to be a good man player, and even if the knee does affect that, he's still outstanding in zone. So I think that this could be a really good pick for Cincy. I think they need help on defense, like you said, and I'm not sure I'd just be willing to take an offensive lineman here when that defense was so historically bad last year, and they just lost their best defensive player in Trey Hendrickson. So bringing in a guy that can kind of shore up and give you a reliable, um, steady player at that cornerback spot, potentially with this injury. But I think that this could be a really good fit, and I think McCoy's going to be an awesome player. Hoping. But yeah, that's what I'm going to take.
Yep. I like it there. I think, like you said, I think they'd like to go safety. Thieneman's a player I haven't gotten to watch yet, but from all the stuff I've
He's been
heard,
skyrocketing up boards,
yeah, he's
and
been
he's
going.
he's skyrocketed up my board as well. I did
Yeah,
get to watch recently.
I think
Um,
I think his floor probably ends up being somewhere around Dallas, but
yeah,
um, I think that would have been an interesting option. I think they could also use a corner, and McCoy I actually think has better tape than Delane, but it's the injury that you worry about a little bit.
yeah.
Um, all right, on to Miami. I think this is where we take the first offensive lineman off the board. I think they would have
Hmm.
liked to go corner, but both the corners you'll be willing to take here are gone. And I'm just going to take the guy who I think is the best O-line in the class, gets to stay in Miami, and Francis Mauigoa. Um, you, I think he is the, I think he projects to maybe be a tackle in the NFL. I think of these guys, he definitely, besides Freeling, who is purely a tackle, but of the polished
Hmm.
guys, he's the most realistic guy who can stay at tackle. But I think if the Dolphins decide they're better at tackle than they are at guard, which I think they are, um, because they have I think Patrick Paul playing left tackle who's okay, and then Austin Jackson who playing right tackle who's been, I think he's been a fine player. Um, I think their guard spots, I don't even know who they're playing at guard right now. I think they are really, really desperate there.
Hmm.
And I think getting someone like Maligoa who you can slide in there, and then if down the line uh you'd like him to play tackle, you can do that. But for now, I think they start him at guard, and you feel really, really confident about that. Jason, you're raising your hand
Hmm.
again. You won't stop.
Yeah, what's up? Um, I'm just wondering because last year we had Campbell and Membu go really early. I'm just wondering why you guys think that the linemen are going a little bit later this year.
It's just a class where the more polished offensive linemen, the guys I'm 100% sure are going to be pretty good, or you can't be 90% sure are going to be really good, have shorter arms, and they're just going to end up being like even shorter than Will Campbell. I think Maui Goa's got pretty
Ah,
similar arms to Will Campbell,
Hmm.
um, but Fano's got much shorter arms than Will Campbell. Vega Ione is a guard. And then after that, Monroe Freeling is the true tackle, but he's got his tape is kind of some good, some bad. And Freeling would be comparable to Membu, where it's like a little bit more of a project, maybe, but you hope it's. And then Membu ended up being great, like immediately. So maybe I honestly think Freeling could
yeah.
end up going much higher than this.
Hmm.
And I think there's a good chance he's the first O line off the board, just because he is for all the measurables these other guys lack in arm length and size. Monroe Freeling, let's see what the actual. How about 6'7", 315? How about that?
Ooh.
We'll take that. And then his arms, I
Hey.
think he had 36-inch arms or something. Like he is a big dude with long arms that can play left tackle in the NFL. So
Hmm.
um these other guys, I think maybe, I mean, they're still gonna end up being good players, but Maui Goa, I think is a tackle in the NFL, but worst case he's guard. The other guys like Fano, I'm like, is a guy who I'm 90% sure is gonna be an interior guy in the NFL.
Yeah.
So all right.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Maligo is going to be a really good right tackle in the league. And if not, he'll be a really good right guard or left guard in the league. And I just think, like you said, he's a big boy. He's a big
Yeah.
boy. And I think that his tape definitely shows, the strength and the size. And I think that that's going to hold up in the league. And I think that with that strength and size, he's also a really good athlete. And I think, combining those two is obviously a recipe for success for an offensive lineman. So
Yeah.
I think that would
Man,
be a really good pick.
PFF has
And
him at 315. He weighed in at like 320 something. So he even
yeah,
bigger than that. Yeah.
yeah. And
He moves
the,
well too, man.
you gave a contract, although it was a short term, smaller deal, but you got a guy in Malik Willis,
Yeah.
want to protect him. So you can go and take this. And I think even if, Malik Willis doesn't work out, you're going to have a really good offensive lineman in Francis Mayaga.
Yeah. All right.
All right,
On
so
Dallas.
on to number 12, on to Dallas. I think if the board had fallen this way, they might be intrigued to trade back,
Yeah.
just because you've kind of got the high end offensive line talent starting to hit here, where teams are going to start wanting to, pick off some of these interior guys and the tackles. Like we just had one go with Mayaga. You still have Lemon and Tyson here, but obviously, Dallas has Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. So I don't know if you really want to take that. The edge talent kind of got, taken up at the beginning of the round, and, Sonny Styles isn't here, obviously, even though they'd like to go linebacker. Um, and I know, Declan, you and I were actually talking about him today, but I think that I'm going to go, and this, again, might be a little bit of a reach, but Akeem Mesidor, the edge from Miami, all the way up here at number 12. Um, I think that he could be a really good fit for Dallas, and especially with Dak, CD, Javante Williams, George Pickens. You got all these guys and you want to win now. You don't really worry as much about the age concerns with Mesidor, because you want to win as soon as possible and be as successful as soon as possible. And I think taking an outlier age wise, it's not going to be as big of a deal for Miami, or for Dallas. And I think that he is a really, really solid player, a really great player. I think that you could make the argument that he was more of a producer for that Miami defense than Bain was this past season. And I think that with the edge need in Dallas and trying to rebuild that defense, losing Michael Parsons, you've got Quinnen Williams in the middle of that defense, and you've got Darren Bland. Um, maybe they would have wanted to go corner here as well, but unfortunately, McCoy and Delane are gone here. So I think that they're going to go with Mesidor, and even if he's going to be 30 by the end of his rookie deal, um, I think that it's going to be a pick that makes a lot more sense for a team like Dallas that's in that
Yeah.
position.
Yeah, I love the player. I think he's my second favorite. Honestly, besides Bain, he's my second favorite edge in the class as far as just
Hmm.
like the tape. You worry about the age, but when you're a team that's trying to win right now, maybe it's a good thing that you're getting an affordable
Yeah.
pass rusher when he's closer to his prime. So I liked it a lot. They added Rashawn Gary. Quinnen Williams will be there for the whole season now.
Yep.
They signed Jalen Thompson, which I kind of like that deal a lot. So safety's a little bit desperate than they thought it would be going in the draft. They could
Hmm.
still go Thieneman or I know
Yeah.
Emmanuel McNeil Warren's a guy who's gotten a lot of hype too. But I think I lean this way, sort of fortify that edge rusher rotation with
Yeah.
Rashawn Gary and Akeem Mesidor, and then I still like Ezaraku, so I think they'll be in a much better place with the kind of the front five of Quentin Williams, Kenny Clark, and Ezaraku and Messidor, and then Rashawn Gary. You could end up this team could end up being pretty good. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, but all right, moving on to number 13 in LA. This is a very, very interesting one. Um, I I I don't know exactly. There were a lot of rumors about the Rams going for AJ Brown, which makes me think
Hmm.
receiver might be in play here. I think it really comes down to the fact that they probably think that they don't trust Devontae Adams to be healthy for a full season anymore. And even if he is, he's a short-term solution right now.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm not sure if they're thinking receiver here, but I wasn't sure of that before. I think it's definitely in play now. I will say with the way the board has fallen, that offensive line
Beautifully
could
if they
be in
wanted to go
play.
receiver,
Yeah, receiver
but
could,
also offensive
yeah,
line.
either
Yeah.
one. And they're honestly, their roster is so good. They can kind of just do whatever they want here.
Yeah.
Um,
Plan for the future.
yeah, like they don't have holes really anywhere, but I think Sean McVay has a tendency to kind of look out. They're a responsible team, but they always end up kind of poking for the new fun toy.
Yeah.
And then it was Ramsey back in the day. They made the trade for Brandon Cooks. They
Hmm.
Devontae Adams recently. Like they like to find a receiver. They have no real needs on the offensive line. They could take a guy like Monroe Freeling to be like a guy who can wait, and that could be a good situation for him. But I'm gonna go with my favorite receiver in the class, um, who I'm honestly terrified about the medical. I have no idea if it's
Hmm.
going to turn out clean. But I think Jordan Tyson complements those other guys in such a perfect way
Yes.
because Puka's
Yeah.
kind of the FZY sort of power slot guy.
Move them all around the
Um,
field.
yeah. And then Adams is a true X. And I think Jordan
Hmm.
Tyson is the perfect Z receiver where he reminds me of Odell. He reminds me of Malik Neighbors. This is a funny comp, but he reminds me of like a more fluid Golden Tate, and that's not an insult. Golden Tate was a really good player.
Golden
Where
Tate
it's
was an awesome player. Yeah.
yeah, but it's where this guy who has like a really crisp route runner, great at the catch point, great with late hands. I think he's a really really skilled receiver, and that would be a scary scary offense to go with
Hmm.
the Rams.
Yeah. And like you said, the Rams, they don't really have the biggest, grouping of needs really at all.
Like this thing has
Um,
wide receiver listed as their biggest need on PFF, and they have
and
the
they
best,
have
maybe the
the
best
best
receiver in
duo in the
football.
league,
Yeah,
probably.
they have
Yeah.
like a top five duo. So
So
yeah,
I definitely can see the concerns with the medical for Tyson. He's had injuries left and right throughout his college career, and both at Colorado and at Arizona State. Um, but despite that, he's still been able to put up great production and awesome film. I mean, like you said, when I watch him, I see Malik Neighbors. Like I can see Malik Neighbors. Like I can see them interchanging and doing the exact same thing that they're doing on his tape. Um, and like you said, excels at the catch point. He's a really good at making those, you know, kind of crazy catches that he's got to make stretch out for, or get in an awkward position to make the catch. He does that all really well, and he's been explosive in college. He makes the big plays, great with the contested catches, great with the spectacular catches. And he was coached by Hines Ward at Arizona State, Super Bowl winning receiver, getting a
Hmm.
lot of great knowledge from him as well. So I think they'd be willing to take the risk of Jordan Tyson with that injury stuff, and it could be a huge boom um, prospect for them to take. And like you said, Devontae Adams is kind of any year now he could be his last. So
Yeah.
I think they sure up that next in line to go along with Puka for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yep. All right. On to Baltimore. This is our community pick. How we
Yep.
feeling at number 14? Which way would you lean here?
So I think that it's almost. I feel like it's almost a guarantee that we should take an offensive lineman here, especially with how this board's fallen. Both having Fano and Viga here available at number 14. Um, I think it could be either of those guys. I do understand, wanting to go receiver. It would make more sense if the Ravens had Tyson here instead of Lemon, just
Yeah.
because, again,
I
size
don't.
concerns.
Yeah.
You don't really want your top two receivers to kind of be, an outlier as far as size goes. I mean, with Zay being 5'9", 5'10", and Makai being 5'11", don't have that guy that can get up and get the
Yeah.
ball. Then there's also Kenyon Sadiq. We were just talking about this before we started recording. I mean, losing Likely and Kolar is huge, and I feel like Sadiq is the mix. He is going to bring a mixture of what both of those guys provided on the field that you could have behind Mark Andrews. And again, Mark Andrews looked
In front of
pretty
Mark
pretty
Andrews.
horrible last year.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can get a guy who's already even better than him
Yeah.
to also help you with the blocking and to also help with the downfield explosive stuff. But I think it's going to be the interior of the offensive line. After only signing John Simpson thus far, as far as starting guys, I think you can take another starter, especially with how bad, Falala was last year in that
Yeah.
interior of the offensive line. I think we should just go out of our way to make sure that never happens again.
Yeah.
So,
DaCosta has a tendency to overcorrect in a good way. That's a compliment, right? When he
yep.
has an issue, he tends like I will never forget. This was Ozzy, but DaCosta was in the room. 2014, we had a big corner issue, and then 15 the same thing. And the next offseason, we're like, screw it. Brandon Carr, Marlon Humphrey. We went all out.
Hmm.
Um, I think here, to be clear, I know Makai Lemon's smaller. If he is the best player on the board for us, I would be open to taking him because he does play a little bit bigger than his frame. But
Absolutely.
I think with the fact that Sadiq's there is interesting, but I think the way I would lean is, I like Vegayon. He's more of a one position player. He's going to play guard. I think I would lead Spencer Fano here
Yeah,
because he ends up going. If you need him to play right tackle, he can. I think he projects better at guard or center in the NFL.
I completely agree. Yep.
But so that gives you so much versatility. It is such a honestly kind of reminds me a bit of Elijah Vera Tucker without the injury concerns as a
Hmm.
player. Um, but that gives you such a sort of cushion for how you build out this offensive line. Because I know we want to, I think we like Emory Jones and would like him to win the spot. I know we're probably going to take a center sometime on day 2 or early in day 3.
Hmm.
But if you draft Spencer Fano, then it gives you the chance to, if you don't want to draft a center, then Fano can play center. Like I think that's a position he can learn quickly. He was doing center reps at the combine, and you can do that if you would like. I
Hmm.
think most likely he ends up as our right guard, playing over Emory Jones, which is fine. Emory's a good player, but I think he makes more sense there. But also, Ronnie's 32 and had injury stuff. Roger Rosengarten, I think, is a fine player. We'll see but like, if halfway through the year you decide, man, the biggest problem on our offensive line is Roger Rosengarten, well, then you can try Fano at right tackle and move Emery back into starting at guard. If you decide,
Hmm.
say you sign Lloyd Cushenberry or some center, you decide that's the biggest problem, you can move him there. I think that flexibility and the way, not to mention what he is as a player, is this just like sort of special mover as an offensive lineman. He
Yeah.
really, really can get out and run in space. So I think
Yep.
Fano's the pick here. We cool with that?
I completely agree. Yeah.
All right.
I think that it's perfect for the Ravens who, like you said, have question marks even still all across the offensive line. And Fano
Even
has
yeah,
made it he's made it, perfectly you know, apparent that he's willing to play all across the line. I mean, he was
yeah,
taking snaps at the combine. He's already been said to be graded out better at a guard position and played tackle in college. I mean, he won the Outland Trophy last year for best offensive lineman in college. And like you said, I feel like Vera Tucker's a good comp. Um, Elton Jenkins, another guy who kind of played that 1 through 5. He's that type of player,
yeah.
and I think that he's going to be good wherever you put him. I think he'll have his most success at guard, which is perfect for the Ravens. Um, but yeah, like you said, he's a special mover, special athlete. I feel like for an offensive lineman, and I just think that he's going to be a really good guard in this league. And I mean, hell, he could even play center for us. So
Yeah.
I think that that's a good pick for us right
I
there.
think
Yep.
it puts you in a spot where you can still take a center day 2 or day 3 if you want to start him. But you can also just go and sign a guy like Lloyd Cushenberry, and then it puts you in a spot where it's funny because this guy's not nearly the player I think Fano is, but it was so nice having Patrick McCary who would start at guard, but then if anything kind of
Could
fell
play
apart,
guard, could
yeah,
play tackle, could play
yeah,
center.
if
Yeah.
anything fell apart, if somebody got hurt and you needed just somebody to play there, and your best backup is a guard, right? Like in our case, our best backup would be Emory Jones, and
Yep.
Ronnie gets hurt. Well, then you can slide some stuff around and plug Fano in. So I think that makes a ton of sense. All right,
Yeah.
on to Tampa
Good
Bay
shout out to
here.
McCary. He was a good part of some great offensive
Yeah,
lines.
he
Hmm.
was.
Excited to protect Lamar finally.
Yeah. All right, on to Tampa Bay. Um, and this is an interesting spot. Vega Ioane is a really, really interesting option here. I'm gonna have a little bit more fun here. I'm gonna go Kenyon Sadiq.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I know Cade Otton's a good player. He's a fine player, but the NFL is kind of moving towards more of a 12 personnel meta. You want to have two tight ends out there. Um, I apologize if I'm a casual. I'm not sure who the two Tampa Bay's second tight end is, if they even have one on the roster.
Throw back to Cameron
Um,
Brate, man. I don't even, he's not
yeah,
even on the
he's
roster
definitely
anymore,
not in
but
the league. Um, but I think Kenyon Sadiq gives them sort of a dynamic element they haven't had at that position in quite a while. Um, and yeah, I mean, I'm looking at their roster. They have Cade Otton, Devin Culp, Payne Durham, and Co Kieft. So I watch a lot of ball, not names I'm
yeah,
overly
not names I'm
familiar
familiar
with.
with.
So I think Sadiq makes a ton of sense for them. I think he could be a really explosive option for them. And yeah, we can go
Yeah.
there. We can move quicker because I think we're approaching an hour here.
Yeah. Just a few quick things on Sadiq. Like you
Yeah.
said, I think the Bucks themselves are gonna look to fill that tight end hole. K Dot, like you said, he's more better served as a second tight end. A guy that
Hmm.
you don't have to rely on specifically in your passing offense. And Sadiq is a guy that you're probably going to be happy to rely on as far as your vertical passing offense. I mean, he's a one of one athlete for a tight end. Um, Crazy athlete, dominated the combine. Um, when you watch his tape, it's actually like it is really weird how Oregon schemes up ways to get him the ball.
Hmm.
Like they're throwing him screens, they're throwing him shovel passes, they're giving him the ball in space
You could do some
instead
weird
of
stuff with
also
him.
yeah, like you can use him all over the field. You can put him out wide in a wide receiver type screen thing or a little bubble screen and just get him the ball and let him get going because he's one hard to bring down, especially for guys like in the secondary. It's going to be hard to bring that guy down. He's huge, 6'3", 6'4", built, strong tight end that can also, toast you down the field in one-on-one coverage as well. So
Yeah.
I think this would be a really good explosive, ad for that passing offense, especially with, losing Mike Evans. You're kind of bringing in another guy to replace some of those catches that you're losing out on.
Yep. All right. On to the
All right,
Jets.
so 16, the Jets. So the Jets obviously have already made a pick here. I had them taking Ruben Bain, so they kind of shored up that edge position, the pass rush, kind of address the defense a little bit. I think they're going to go on the offensive side of the ball here. And I think they're going to take Makai Lemon.
Yeah, it's
I
fell
think
beautifully for them.
this stops the fall for Lemon, and you know I think we're pretty sure that all these three receivers are kind of I think that that last one's going to be going by the New York Jets. I think that they'll be able to take that third guy at that point,
Yeah.
and to be able to get Lemon and pair him up with Garrett Wilson, I think that they're a really good fit together. Wilson's kind of I don't know, he's kind of a downfield spectacular catch, contested catch type of guy, route runner, and Lemon's kind of the guy that you can dink and dunk it to, that's going to break tackles and grind yards and wear the defense down. That can also break away huge plays as well after the catch. And there were definitely some questions at the combine. He was acting a little odd at the
Yeah.
combine,
It's
which
just
definitely was like, what is this guy doing? This guy's really corny. And then I also saw him running his 40 at his
running on
pro
his
day,
heels, dude. It was
and he
so
was running on
weird.
his heels, which is like, that's not how you're supposed to run. But again, I mean, this guy won the Bolitnikoff this year, so obviously he's productive and he's proved it. In the Big Ten as well, playing for USC, and he's just continued that lineage of great receivers coming out of USC as well. And I just think his play style, despite the concerns with the running and stuff like that, I just feel like this guy catches passes. He catches everything thrown at him, I feel like. And he is so tough to bring down. So he's going to catch the ball. And then when he gets the ball, he is going to break a tackle. So it's like this guy, I feel like he's going to be good despite the concerns. And
Yeah.
like I said, the Jets kind of have that whole receiver besides Garrett Wilson. So this would be a great pick for them.
Yeah, we keep getting these guys coming out who are these sort of weird, I'm not sure where they fit power slot guys, and he is the next of the line of
Yep.
Igbuka and
JSN and
JSN and to a lesser extent Puka because we didn't
St.
know that when he
Brown.
was coming out. Yeah, Amon Ra. I think Amon Ra is the cleanest comp.
Yep.
And then, he plays the Amon Ra role. Garrett Wilson plays the sort of Devontae Adams sort of outside X receiver guy. So
Yeah.
the Detroit Lions, this fell beautifully for
Beautifully
them.
for them. Yep.
Monroe Freeling, they have a glaring hole at left tackle. He's the best true left tackle prospect in the class. I don't even really feel like the need to explain it very much. Honestly, Taylor Decker might even be a decent comp for him.
Yeah.
He's bigger. He doesn't move quite like Taylor Decker, but Monroe Freeling, I think if this fell this way for the Lions, they would be jumping for joy. Um,
Yes.
and I think they would turn that card in so fast, but I don't really feel the need to explain too much. Just by far the best left tackle option in this class, the glaring need they have, so should be easy.
Yeah. I mean, best player at the left side at the tackle position, played
Hmm.
for Georgia, destroyed the combine, great athlete. Like you said, not much explaining to do. They need help with that offensive line. And obviously, you want to give Jared Goff the protection and you want to give Jahmyr Gibbs the holes that he needs. And I think Freeling on that left side would be a perfect fit.
Yep.
All right. Number 18, the Minnesota Vikings. So, no more nine. They have Kyler. Well, we'll see if there's more nine or not, but they've got
Wait till
Kyler
nine throws his first touchdown of the year.
and then hits the gritty. Yeah. So they've got some needs here, and I think more on the defensive side of the ball is what they're going to focus on. Maybe they go offensive line here with Viga, um, which I could definitely see, especially with Kyler. Um, Man, this is a little tough. I think I'm going to go with Viga here
Okay.
for Minnesota. I was debating between him and Peter Woods,
Oh, interesting.
and I didn't want to go Peter Woods, sort of because I don't know, man. They just cut two starting caliber defensive tackles, and I don't know, man. They cut Hargrave, they cut Allen, and Woods definitely has a lot of concerns. Um, so I think they take Viga to protect whoever comes out of the QB competition. Um, I think that defense is going to succeed no matter what with Brian Flores, and they still have pieces with Byron Murphy and with Jonathan Grenard. So I think that they're going to go Vega here and continue to protect that quarterback.
Yeah, I they absolutely could use some help on the interior of that offensive line. Um, I honestly I was thinking maybe safety for them there, and every
Hmm.
year, like last year, I thought, oh, Thieneman and Emmanuel McNeil Warren, I think could both be off the board shortly and in the real draft before this. But, last year I thought Malachi Starks would be a top 20 pick, and he made it all the way to 28 or 29 whenever we took him. So
Yeah.
not overly surprising. All right. On to Carolina. And this is an interesting spot here. We're kind of getting to the point
Hmm.
where I don't love the fits. I think this would be a good trade down spot for
Hmm.
them if that were an option. But with what's on the board, I
Felt a
I
little weird
think,
this for this for
yeah,
them.
it's felt a
Yeah.
little odd for them. I think I'm just gonna go
Defense?
with, yeah, I'm gonna go defense, and I think I'm gonna go with what's um my favorite fit for them, and my favorite interior defensive lineman in the class still, which is Peter Woods.
Okay.
Peter Woods isn't a
Yeah.
perfect player. I don't think he's going to go this high in the actual draft. I still like him quite a bit. It's weird because he's played at two different sizes, right? He's played
Yep.
at sort of 295, 300. And when he plays at that lower weight, man, he's really kind of a special
Pass
mover.
rushing
Yeah.
interior lineman.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
kind of reminds me a little bit of Matabike when he's at that lower weight, where
Hmm.
he's kind of
Yeah.
moving guys. He's got a quick get off. But in those, he's not nearly the kind of the run stuffer in that at that weight. And when he's playing bigger, he's got kind of huge power in his hands, but he's not quite the pass rusher. I think if he went to Carolina playing next to Derek Brown, he'd stay slimmer. And I
Yep.
really like pairing him next to Jalen Brown, next to Derek Brown.
Derek Brown.
Um,
That B
next
dude.
Yeah, that B dude, Jalen Brown. But no, I think next to Derek Brown, next to Jalen Phillips, you have two guys who I think Jalen Phillips is quite a good run stopper on the edge. I think
Yep.
Derek Brown's like an A plus run stopper on the interior. I think that frees him up to be a little bit of a different player. And I think it makes a lot of sense for Carolina. I think ideally they'd like to get in on Kenyon Sadiq. They'd like one of the receivers to fall to them.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't think, or even Vega. I think they'd like to play Vega at right guard, but I don't think any of the other offensive linemen are quite worth taking here. Maybe Pregnon, but I like Peter Woods there. I think he could be a real difference maker for that defense.
I
Yeah.
know you got to
Yeah.
support Bryce, but I just feel like them being able to get a pass rush with less players going at it, like, is the best
Yeah,
way forward.
and they're clearly
And
invested in that with the Jalen Phillips contract. So
I was
Yeah.
just gonna say, like, man, they're really building what could be a scary defense
hmm
for Carolina, with JC Horn, Derek Brown, they gave Jalen Phillips the money, they brought in Devin Lloyd, now you got Peter Woods. Like that's a really, really good, cast that they're starting to build there. And, like you said, pairing him up next to Derek Brown feels like a really good move for
yeah,
what seems like the career path that he wants to take is to slim down and kind of focus on being more of the pass rusher, the guy that can get pressure from the interior, and pairing him up against a guy who's happy to, take those doubles and, be the run stopper of the two, would be a really good pairing. And again, he's a weird like he was really, really, like really good last year in 2024 and then took a step back in 2025 as far as his production went,
if
which is
he could have
definitely a
declared,
concern.
if he could have declared after last year, he would have been a top 10 pick.
Top 10 pick. Absolutely. And that's why he was getting such big hype at the beginning of this year, and going into this college football season was because of that production last year. And he definitely took a step back this year. And you question that, but also watching the tape, if this guy does want to, focus on being an interior defensive pass rusher, he has all the tools to do that. And I feel like it would be a really good move for Carolina to start, like I said, building what could be a scary defense for Bryce and Tet on that other side of the ball.
Yeah. All right. On to Dallas, and in my
Dallas.
opinion, this fell beautifully for them.
Yeah, second pick here for Dallas. Um, we had them taking Akeem Mesidor at
hmm
12, and they've definitely, like you said, they've definitely got some options here. You've got Avion Terrell, the cornerback from Clemson. If you want to take a defensive back, you've got CJ Allen at the linebacker spot. You got Dylan Thieneman at safety, Emmanuel McNeil Warren at safety. I think they might go with Dylan Thieneman here.
Yeah.
Um, I
I
think
think
that that could
I
make a
think
lot
they
of
might go with him at
sense.
12, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And like I had mentioned earlier, I have gotten the chance to watch some of his film, and he's jumped up my draft board since the combine. I had him as like a second rounder before the combine. Didn't really dive into his film until after. And I mean, this guy's going to be a really great, rangy zone coverage, cover a quarter of the field, make plays on the ball hawk type of safety. And I feel like that's really good for Dallas. Obviously, they could go with Terrell, which would make a lot of sense. You still have Darren Bland, though, who's a pretty solid corner. And you can get some pieces to go around that. I think you can shore up the back end of the defense by getting Thieneman. And like I said, this guy is pretty elite in coverage as far as safeties go and defensive backs in general in this draft class. And he's not as great of a tackler as you'd want. But again, as far as coverage safeties go and coverage in the defensive back room in this draft class, I feel like he's right up at the top. He had 6 interceptions as a true freshman, which is pretty crazy. He hasn't had the same production since then, but he's been able to make plays for Oregon in the college football playoff and in big moments, and really fluid mover in zone coverage, and really high IQ with play recognition, knowing what's coming and knowing when to break on the ball. I think it's a good pick here for them and can shore up that back end of the defense.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I haven't gotten the chance to watch him quite yet, but from what I understand and people I trust talking about it, he is, I think, going to go a lot higher than this. But I think
Yeah,
to
he had a really
Dallas is, yeah,
standout performance against Penn State.
okay.
Um, it was a whiteout game, and he was just all over the field. And it wasn't even like making interceptions necessarily, but he was just like covering space in zone coverage. I mean, cross routes or deep balls, and he's, you know, coming over and swatting it, jumping on guys. And then there was one play with an interception where they had gotten a goal line fade, and um, Thieneman, kind of jumped it, kind of one on one, and it was just a really good performance. So I think he's going to be a really good player.
Yeah, and they need a safety, not as desperately
Yep.
as they used to, but they do need a safety. All right.
On
To
to
the
Pittsburgh.
Steelers, on to Pittsburgh. Yeah, I think they'd like to go offensive line here. I don't know that, you know, you could talk me into Caden Proctor.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Um, I'd consider that. I think corner's another way they could go. Obviously they have Joey Porter, but they were pretty old outside of that. And Avion Terrell, honestly, all of the Clemson guys kind of didn't look great last year. I don't know what was
Hmm.
going on with Clemson as a whole program. Obviously Klubnik being the worst case of it. He was so
Yeah.
bad, but um, I actually do think I'm going to go with Caden Proctor here. I think he projects as a
Okay.
as a
Yeah.
an interesting long-term tackle option. I think probably right tackle, not left tackle. In the NFL, but I don't know. He could end up. He is big enough to play left tackle. I just think speed-wise, I don't know that he's going to end up being
Yeah.
somebody
He's a
you
slower
want.
guy. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
he's
don't
just
know.
humongous. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe the comp's Orlando Brown, who plays left tackle in the NFL, but shouldn't. Um, he should be a right tackle. So I think tackle here makes a lot of sense. They lost their guard, Sayamalu. So just replenishing, I know it's not the same position, but replenishing talent on the offensive line is good. And I don't know that I think Broderick Jones is a long-term left tackle
No.
solution, but I do think Troy Fatuanu is a good tackle. So I think I think Caden Proctor makes a lot of sense there. I think it might be a little higher than he'll go, but I don't think it's that big of a reach.
I think people have been like a little bit too low on him in this draft process. Like I get it, he's humongous, and that's definitely, going to be an issue if he does play left tackle, just because. He's going to be slow getting out of his stance, and having your left tackle be on the slower side and being a risk of getting beat by some of those quicker guys around the edge is definitely a concern. So maybe moving him over to right tackle is a better idea. But again, this guy's still a really quality athlete for his size. I mean, Alabama was throwing this guy screen passes out wide. Like this guy was involved in their offense more than just as an offensive lineman. So this guy's a really good athlete, and he's humongous. So I think he's going to be a really good player. Um, Again, like I had said, a little bit slower, but I really don't like if Caden Proctor is getting pulled, like if they're running a play where he's pulling around the offensive line, like if I'm an edge rusher, I am running the other way, man. I mean, this guy
Yeah.
is scary. And if I'm a linebacker and I see Caden Proctor, getting off of a defensive lineman and making his way up to the second level to block me, again, I'm running away. So I think it's a really good pick here. And like you said, I don't really think their offensive line is a very good long term, option. And if Aaron Rodgers does come back, you want as much protection around him. So I think you
Yeah.
take Caden Proctor here. Yeah.
All right. On to the Chargers.
On to the Chargers. It's going to be a very quick pick for me. And probably higher than a lot of people have him. I know he's a Bird Rights podcast favorite, but the Chargers need interior offensive line
Hmm.
so bad. And, you know, it would be awesome if you had a receiver kind of fall here. Maybe you get Lemon. I just don't think they're going to fall this far. And I don't know if you're
No.
willing to take an Omar Cooper this high or if you're willing to take a Casey Concepcion this high.
Yeah.
I think that they just stick with the interior of the offensive line and they go with Emmanuel Pregnon, um, who at Oregon was an awesome, awesome player this past year. If you just look up pictures of this guy, I mean, his arms, his biceps are bigger than like my quads. Like this guy's arms are humongous. He's a ginormous guy. I have him comp to Tyron Smith at guard. Tyron Smith, obviously humongous left tackle. Um, he like famously had to wear a knee brace on his elbow because his arms were so big. And I think Pregnon's that type of guy at the offensive guard position. He has some really hilarious run blocking tape where he will just flatline guys and just lay guys on their ass. And it's just really fun to watch. And I think adding that to the Chargers would be great for Justin Herbert, great for Omarion Hampton, and just great for that offense in general. And I think that he'll be a really quality starter for them for a long time. And like I said, I feel like a lot of people are lower on him than they should be. Um, he was a high quality starter at both University of Southern California and or at Oregon, and just going to be a mauler in that run game, going to protect Justin Herbert, and I think that that's the pick for them right there.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I'd be willing to take Pregnon this high. I don't think he'll go that high, but I totally agree.
Yeah.
All right, on to the Philadelphia Eagles, and boy, is this a fun one.
Mm.
AJ Brown, I think, could be out the door.
I think he already is. Yeah.
I think I'm expecting that to come down after June 1st or something, but I think he could
Hmm.
be out the door. I don't think they want to go into next year with because obviously they have a nice receiver room right now, but it's AJ Brown and then it's Devontae Smith and then not a whole lot.
Yeah,
So
Yep.
Dotson is gone, right? Yeah,
yeah, Dotson's
it's
gone,
getting a little
and even
stressful.
yeah, even so I think receiver is the easy way to go here, and I really like Omar Cooper Jr.
Love that.
I have no problem taking him this high. I think this is the range he should go in.
Hmm.
Um, and he doesn't have special size or anything. He doesn't have, but he's not a small guy. He's a 6 footer. He's about as like average size as it comes,
Hmm.
but he has good hands. He, he creates separation, but it's really good at the catch point still. I, I think, I think this is a safe. wide receiver two option. I think he ends up being a very good player. I don't know that I don't know that he's an A+ player. I think maybe the comp is Jacoby Myers, who's a good player.
Yeah.
And you need players like that. So, because you don't want to be running out there with no wide receiver two, and right now they don't really have much of an option for that. So I think Omar Cooper gives you that safety, and if by some reason you do keep AJ Brown, he's a qualified slot player who can kind of play in that inside outside. I do think he's
Hmm.
sort of a Y or a Z. He's not an X player, but that's okay because Devontae Smith can be your X. And I think it's a good fit in Philly.
I absolutely agree. I actually got to watch some Omar Cooper film today. So
Okay.
I have seen his film. He is, very recently on my mind. Um, and like you said, I feel like Jacoby Myers is a really good comp for him. He's kind of that Jacoby Myers, Rasheed Rice type of player that's kind of like not super breakaway speed down the field, but again, he's going to make a catch and he's going to break a tackle and he's going to be reliable and he's going to get you extra yardage. And, he's a physical route runner, a physical after the catch, and obviously was excellent for for Indiana. Being a major contributor for that offense and Fernando Mendoza throughout the national championship run.
Yep.
Um, and like you said, I just think that AJ Brown's already out the door, man. So I think that once he's gone, it's Devontae Smith and a whole lot of nothing. So I think bringing in Omar Cooper, who's a good complement to Devontae Smith, um, can definitely shore up and bring some reliability to that offense.
Yeah. All right. On
All right, on
to
to
the
Cleveland
Browns.
for their second pick. So if Carnell Tate obviously didn't fall to number 6, Omar Cooper would have been a guy I would have liked to look at here for Cleveland. However, they did get Carnell Tate, so that gives them the option to kind of go in a different direction as far as who they want to take with this pick at number 24. Um, and I'm kind of looking at my board here, and I don't know, man. I don't know. You could go with tackle possibly. But all the tackles are kind of gone off the board now.
Blake Miller's interesting, but he's more of a right tackle, and they just got Titus
For
Howard for them.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you did get Carson Swessinger, so you kind of have that inside linebacker spot kind of worked out. I think I might take TJ Parker here.
Hmm.
Kind of,
Again, another guy who's 24 tapes better than 25 tape, but
yeah. But I feel like TJ Parker's 24 tape, or I guess his fall off between his 24 tape and his 25 tape wasn't as bad
yeah.
or as steep as the Peter Woods tape kind of fall off was. I think TJ Parker was still a really quality player. Just in 2024, he was an elite player who would have gone top 15 if he had been able to declare last year. I think he's a really high quality power edge rusher. And outside of Myles Garrett, they do have kind of that other pass rusher, it's kind of empty, I feel like. They obviously have Mason Graham on the inside, but as far as the other, edge rusher, they don't really have a name there. And you're not really bringing in TJ Parker to be that A1 edge rusher. You're kind of bringing him in as that Myles Garrett complement that can be on the field at the same time as him, but also can be on the field in replacement of him when he needs plays off. And like I said, really high quality edge rusher as far as power goes. He really stood out at the Senior Bowl. I know he really had some really good one-on-one reps there. Um, I think he's going to be a really good, run defender at the next
Hmm.
level. And I think that he's a really good athlete for his size. He's a bit more of like a sturdier, thicker guy as far as his build goes, but I think he had some great film against South Carolina. Unfortunately, he was blowing up some of our, runs and some of, keeping Lenora Sellers contained, not really letting him get out of the pocket, and translating that to going against Lamar Jackson. Seeing that he really did well against Lenora Sellers and all that, scrambling in the pocket. Bringing him in for Cleveland to help with Myles Garrett containing Lamar Jackson, and I think it could be a good fit. And like I said, they have that other spot across from Myles Garrett wide open. So why not take TJ Parker here?
Yeah. I like that. All right. On to the Bears. Lost both their safeties in free agency, but signed Kobe
Yeah.
Bryant to play one of the
Yep.
safety spots. So they got one of those locked down. So Emmanuel McNeil-Warren's very interesting, but I think they
But
have more dire needs on the interior of the defensive line and really the edge rusher position.
mhm.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I believe in Montez Sweat at this point in his career. Um, like Odangbo was so bad. He was not good at all. Um, they really have not much on the edge. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure when they can get out of that Grady Jarrett contract, but I'm sure they're counting down the days until they can.
Yep.
Um, like they are really bad everywhere. Sweat's still a fine player, so I want to go D line here or edge. And the 2 to 3 guys, Keldrick Falk is interesting because he's such a solid and strong run defender, but I think you need a little bit more pass rush juice than that from at this spot if you're going to go edge. So if I'm going to go edge here, Zion Young is the name I'm looking at. And then
Mm.
if I'm going to go D line, which I think is the way I'm leaning, um, man, I know his foot's hurt, but I think Caleb Banks gives you a ceiling of a just enormous player and a crazy athlete at that size that I think that's the way I'm going to go. I think
Okay.
he's not quite
Yeah.
Jordan Davis sized, but he's huge and he moves crazy well for a guy that size. He's got a hurt foot right now. That's a concern. It's a real concern. I think he could fall further than this. Caden McDonald would be the safer pick, but I don't think McDonald has the same sort of ceiling as a contributor on the as a interior pass rusher. I think he's more of a traditional nose tackle, which by the way, you will find is a theme of this draft class. There are a lot of nose tackles.
Yeah.
Um, but I think Caleb Banks gives you the highest ceiling there, and they really, really need some juice on that D line. So I think that's the best, sort of 30-foot jump shot at trying to find some sort of juice in the pass rush here. Interior pass rush, that is.
Yeah. I really like that pick for them. And like you said, there's a concern with the foot, but again, this guy is like this is
I don't think
not
he makes
statistical, but
if there's no concern with the foot, he doesn't make it this far. I think there's no
yeah.
way. Yeah. Like,
He's a Jordan Davis type of outlier as far as
yeah.
size and movement goes. And you're going to take a bet on that as far as contributing in the NFL, especially with how good Jordan Davis has turned out to be.
Yeah.
Um, and with the hole they have at the interior of the defensive line, I think that makes a lot of sense there.
Yeah. All right. On the
All
Buffalo.
right, on to Buffalo. So, obviously early on in this draft cycle, wide receiver was, the thought here. They got DJ Moore, so not as much of a necessity. Now
Signed
having
two
DJ Moore
yeah.
and Khalil Shakir.
Signed two
Um,
safeties as well, so that's kind of off the table.
yeah. So, they bring in Brad Chubb, really bad contract in my opinion,
Yeah.
but they bring in Chubb, so maybe they could go edge here. But you have Chubb, you have Rousseau, you have Ed Oliver, so the defensive line's kind of sorted a little bit. I think I'm debating between taking a guard here or taking a linebacker. Between CJ Allen and Jennings Dunker, I
Mm.
think I'm going to go with Allen, though. I think I'm going to
Yeah.
take CJ Allen. I picked 27, linebacker out of Georgia. Um, and, it looks like Buffalo's losing Matt Milano. I don't think he's going to be coming back. So that's kind of a hole that they need to fill as far as, a tackling, play calling linebacker, a guy that's going to, help defend the run, but it can also help, you know, as far as in coverage. And I think that CJ Allen's a really good fit here for Buffalo. I think that he is a really flowy linebacker. He always finds his way to like fluidly make his way to the ball and get around blocks and find his way through traffic and make a tackle. And I feel like he's a really fluid mover, kind of patient in his way to get to the ball. And then when he actually does get to the ball, a ferocious tackler and a guy that's going to get you to the ground, no doubts about it, isn't going to really, make mistakes as far as missing tackles. And he just seems really smart as far as whether it's, making a break on a ball or diagnosing a run or, you know, timing a jump to get a pass deflection. He's just a really smart player, and I think he'd be a really great future play caller for that defense that, you know, definitely needs to be really good for Josh Allen if they want to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think Milano kind of leaves a glaring hole in the middle of their
Yeah.
defense that they need addressed. All right, on to the 49ers. This is a team that I'm pretty sure would love to go with Caden Proctor. I think this is kind of
Yeah.
where
Trent
maybe
Williams kind of
his,
out the door-ish.
yeah, I think they'd love to go tackle here. I don't know that Blake Miller or Ian Shore makes the most sense in the world, but I'm still considering it. I think the way I'm going to go here is stop the fall for Keldrick Falk. Now, Keldrick Falk is
Yeah.
he's maybe my most intrigued. He's the player I'm most interested in the entire draft, I think. He he's
He's one of them
20
for me as
years
well.
old.
Yeah.
He's 20 years old. He is he won't I think he won't even be 21 by the time the season rolls around. He is an unbelievable run defender. He is
Yep.
as impactful of an edge run defender as I've seen, and not in just like, oh, he sets a strong edge, Courtney Upshaw kind of way. In like a no, he attacks downhill. He's a physical player. He's
Crazy
sick.
bend at times too. Like
Yeah,
he is a fluid around the edge.
he's 6'6", 280. So he is an
Yeah.
unbelievable size and speed for an edge rusher, and he's going to be immediately one of the best, highest impact run defenders on the edge. The problem is, if you think he's a pass rusher, it is all theoretical. He has shown no moves, no counter
Nothing.
moves, no literally nothing. His pressure rate last year was 10%, which is not good for a NFL draft prospect. That is not good at all. Um, he oddly enough, his early down pressure rate was 11.2, which is a little better, but still not great for
Yeah.
but I just think he is a guy who is a blank slate as a pass rusher, and I think Raheem Morris probably thinks he could turn something in out of that, and he's 20
Yeah.
years old, so kind of the opposite of Akeem
Plenty of time to
Mesidor,
develop.
the opposite of Akeem Mesidor,
Yep.
and I do think he still has a high floor because worst case scenario, he's a first and second down mauler on the edge. You can set the edge and be amazing for you there. Best case scenario, he becomes kind of one of the best players in this class, but
Yeah.
that's all theoretical
Theoretical.
right now. Yeah. So like it's not even like sometimes you say, okay, it's the here sometimes, but he has to be more consistent with it. No, it's just we haven't seen it. There's none of it on tape. He doesn't have really any feel as a pass rusher. So it's
Yeah.
concerning, but I think with Bosa opposite him, you kind of don't necessarily need the most pass rush juice immediately. They were horrible stopping the run last year, so I think it'll be a big help right away, and it's kind of something they can mold. But yeah.
Yeah. And he could play inside as well. Like they can put him,
Yeah, that's interesting.
inside the tackles as well. Like you said, 6'6", 285. It's not like he's a small guy. He can definitely hold up against those guards. And um, it's kind of funny. He's very Trayvon Walker-ish, very Michael Williams-ish, who the 49ers took last year. Carlos Dunlap's a guy I see Met thrown around just because of the
Mm,
huge size, big long arms. Carlos Dunlap was obviously a really good pass rusher. That's probably more of what he would look like if he put together the pass rushing
yeah,
chops. But I could definitely see him being a really good player. And like you said, worst outcome, he's a really good run defender, man. And
yeah.
that's
You
useful
hope
in the
he's
league, and they need that.
you
So,
hope he's the best version of Jadeveon Clowney, but he might be the worst
yep,
version of Jadeveon Clowney. Like that's kind of what we're looking at. All right, on to Houston. That's
on to
a really interesting
Houston.
one. Yeah, this is I'm
This
so
is a really
curious.
interesting one. Yeah, they could go
I
with the
have
interior of the offensive line here. Um,
kind of out of
they could
guards
go
to
with
take this high. Yeah,
maybe you could go with Dunker. Maybe you could go with Basantis. Um,
Blake Miller.
but
It's interesting.
maybe you could go with Blake Miller as well. But maybe this is a little bit out of left field as well. I say that with a lot of these picks I'm making, but I'm going to go with the interior of the defensive line here. And I'm not going Kane McDonald. I'm going with Lee Hunter out of Texas
Mm,
Tech.
I
Kind
like
of like
that.
Caleb Banks, who I thought was going to be, who has also been mentioned as a really good fit in this Texans defense. Obviously, they don't need help at the edge. They have Daniil Hunter, they have Will Anderson, you know, and again, the corner room, they have Stingley, they have Kamari Lassiter, they've got Petrie, they've got all these guys over the defense. Why not add a guy who is such a great statistical productive player last year for this Texas Tech defense? stays in Texas, goes to Houston, and shores up a hole in that run defense. Um, that's kind of glaring there.
Yeah.
And look, I don't think Hunter's going to be the very best pass rusher in this class. I really don't. He's not really going to be that. But as far as being that run stopping, eating up double teams, shedding the block and wrapping up a guy for no gain at the line of scrimmage in the run game, I feel like he could be the very best in this class at doing that. And like I said, super productive for the best defense in the country last year. Um, an outlier as far as getting tackles for loss as a nose tackle.
Yeah,
Um,
I have a stat on that.
insane.
He's got 4.5% tackle for loss rate. That was top 5%. I actually that's just the scale. I'm on Sumer Sports that has some of these stats. That's just the scale. It's like it's blue, which means it's in the top 5%. It
Yeah.
could be higher than that, but if that's a crazy number for an interior guy like that.
No,
His
it's
pressure numbers
insane.
were okay too. His pressure numbers were okay too. I really, really like Lee Hunter. He's a guy I've been like every time he's there when I do the Ravens mock drafts at 45, I click and
It's
go
like,
so
man,
fast. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And he's explosive for his size. He's humongous. He's going to eat up those double teams. And like you said, the statistical output, when I was doing my draft grades for these guys, the way I do them is each stat, I kind of compare it against historical NFL stats to see how they, measure up through college. And, you know, as far as his what's the word I'm looking for? Like his um like percentile in as far as tackle for loss rate for nose tackles in the NFL, he broke the scale. It was like
Yeah.
120th percentile tackle for loss rate compared to the NFL. And the only other guy who was breaking the scale for percentiles in my draft grades was it was Jeremiah Love. So
Yeah.
Lee Hunter, as far as just a nose tackle, he's going to be super productive in the league, and I think that he would be a really great fit here and would make this Texans defense even more scary, which is just crazy to think about.
I love Lee Hunter. I think God, I'd love him to be there at 45 for us. God, that would be great. I don't
Yeah,
think he'll make it there, but
he's going to be
um,
such an awesome run defender, man. He's going to
yeah,
be so
I
so
and
good
I
at
think
stopping
I
the
think he
run.
has more juice as kind of a pocket pusher than he gets credit for.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
the numbers here is he's 9.4% pressure rate, which is in the top 15% for defensive tackles. So really, we're getting 12.4% pressure rate when he rushes in the B gap, which is quite good.
yeah,
Now his problem is sometimes he gets that pressure and misses some tackles. Like that's one of the
yep.
problems for him because he takes risks and sometimes misses tackles because of it. So that's a concern. But I think for the Texans, when they have all these other good players around them, it makes all the sense in the world.
Hmm.
All right, on to Kansas City, and I think they'd run this card in
This
pretty
felt
quick.
really good for them.
Yeah, they need a safety or a corner real bad.
I got a
You know,
safety in a corner here at the top of the board.
yeah. So Emmanuel McNeil Warren, I think, is the best player available. They did just sign Alohi Gilman, who's fine. He shouldn't stop you from taking a really good player though. Um, and they did lose Brian Cook, so safety is an interesting way to go. But I think they literally don't have any. They have one cornerback they drafted last year who they like kind of,
Yeah.
but they need a corner too bad. I'm actually gonna go Colton Hood over Avion Terrell.
Oh, okay.
I like Colton Hood a little bit more. He played a lot. Kansas City likes to play kind of a lot of press man, and Colton Hood did that for the last, 2 years before this year. Was a lot more off coverage this year. Struggled a little bit more this year, but not. He was still good from what I watched, and I guess PFF has him graded pretty similarly all the years he's played. But he's been a very good college corner for 3 years now. He feels very
Hmm.
very safe to me. Um, and he's got prototypical size for a corner, 6 feet, 200 pounds. He's just like a B plus corner printed out of a lab. Um, it's just a guy who I trust to be pretty solid. Honestly,
Hmm.
like Jalen Watson's gone, I think that would be a pretty favorable outcome for him. So Colton Hood there, they just need corners. They need to get a corner in the building desperately. And I think Avion Terrell might have a higher ceiling. But I like the size and I like Colton Hood a little bit more, but I wouldn't kill anybody for taking Terrell there.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And I think Colton Hood is really standard, really, really good player. Obviously, you know, was alongside Jermod McCoy and
Hmm.
was a really excellent corner for Tennessee for quite some time. So I think that'll be a good pick. And like you said, Kansas City has just about nothing in that corner room. So just about taking just about any guy here in a really deep corner class, I think they're gonna be happy with who they get. So I
Yeah.
think Colton Hood's a good pick.
Shout out Chris Johnson too. I would have thought about him too, but a little high.
Yeah.
I like Terrell a little bit more there too.
All right. So on to Denver.
Yep.
All right, last three picks here. So Denver, definitely interesting spot here with this board falling. You've got secondary kind of at the top of the board here, and I feel like that's kind of like the last of their needs right now with,
Yeah. I think they would have liked
PS2,
Keldrick Falk because they lost
Hufanga.
yeah,
Yeah.
lost JFM.
They lost JFM. They've still got Benito, they still got Cooper, they've still got Allen, but they
Yeah.
did lose that, interior pass rush. So that's definitely something that they're kind of lacking now. Um, it's unfortunate because Cade McDonald's such a really good player, but I'm not sure he's really that much of anything in the pass rush game. And that would just
Yeah.
kind of be adding to that interior, like with Zach Allen. So I don't know. I think I'm going to go with KC Concepcion here. Um,
Okay. That's
they
some
do need
juice.
wide
They need
receiver.
they need juice in the pass game. He's got it. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
So they got Cortland Sutton, and then after Cortland Sutton, it's like this, odd group of guys that just kind of are solid. You got Marvin Mims, you've got Troy Franklin, you've got these guys that are going to make plays, but I feel like you need another really reliable threat. And Casey Concepcion's a really good fit alongside Cortland Sutton as far as, Sutton's that big X, you know, get up, contested catch, one-on-one type guy. And Casey Concepcion, again, underneath guy you want to kind of get the ball to an open space and let him make moves. And then to add on, he's an excellent kick returner and punt returner as well that they can
Hmm.
add to their special teams unit. So you're getting a guy that's really shifty, kind of like a joystick. Um, I did watch some of his film today as well, and I don't think he's like as Zay Flowers-ish. He's not really that small and that compact, and I feel like he's not that twitchy. But he kind of reminds me of like a Jaden Reed almost.
Yeah, I like. Oh, I
Someone who's a
really
little
like
bit
that. Yeah.
smaller
I was
that
gonna say
can he's
somewhere between Zay Flowers and Rashid Shaheed, and that's Jaden Reed. That's what you
Jaden
described.
Reed, yeah.
Yeah.
And Jaden Reed's really shown some flashes as far as being a really talented receiver in the NFL. And I feel like Concepcion could be even better than that. I feel like he's got a little more juice after the catch.
Hmm.
And I think he's a really good route runner. He's a really good, at attacking the ball for his size. And like I've been saying over and over again, pretty shifty guy, really good compliment for Cortland Sutton. So I think they'll go with Casey Concepcion here.
All right. I like that a lot. All right. On to the Patriots. Um, I'm not gonna let this mock draft go without taking one of my favorite guys in the class, and that's Zion
Take
Young.
him. Take
Um,
him.
they obviously the interior of the defensive line is perfectly fine. They have Christian Barmore and Milton Williams. That's
Yep.
beautiful. Their pass rush, they lost Caleb on Chase on, not the end of the world, obviously. But they need sort of every down players there. I think Zion Young is one of the more well-rounded edge rushers in this class. He is, they got Draymond Jones, which is a really nice player pickup for them. They need sort of a guy who can stop the run and play every down. That's what he can do. I think Zion Young opposite him does a lot for you. I think Zion Young's one of the better run stoppers in this class outside of Keldrick Falk. He's right up there as sort of a run fitter, but I also think he's got a whole lot more on tape as a pass rusher than Keldrick Falk.
Hmm.
And I I just really, really love the player. Again, that's another guy. Anytime he's there at 45, I get super excited when I'm doing the Ravens mock drafts. But Zion Young, as far as value for where they're going to go, might be my favorite edge in the class. He's, consistently showing high effort. He's definitely more of a power player than a speed player, that's for sure. I don't think he's got um, special jump off the line or speed or anything like that. But he had an
Hmm.
18.7% pressure rate last year, which was top 10% of all college edge rushers, 17.2% early down pressure rate, which is really good. And then again, 2.3% tackle for loss rate, which by the way, shows how fucking insane the Lee Hunter stats are. But that was also really,
Yep.
really good for Zion Young. But I love Zion Young. I think I would, God, I'd love him to make it into the second round. But I think, I think, I think this is probably the range he deserves to go.
Yeah, I think he's one of the more underrated pass rushers in this group, and I haven't gotten a chance to do a ton of research on him, but I've seen his name being thrown around a lot as far as a high second rounder, and I think that he could definitely see himself breaking into the end of this first round as well.
Hmm.
And the Patriots definitely need pass rush. They lost Chase on, and like you said, they want to continue to build up this defense, and I think Zion Young will be a really good addition for that edge rushing group.
All right. Last pick of the first round.
Last pick for the Super Bowl champs, Seattle Seahawks. Um, they lost Kenneth Walker. That's probably their biggest need is running back now. Don't really have a running back you're confident taking with this end of the first round pick. It was really just Jeremiah Love, and then it's a big drop off until you hit that day two. And then you start getting confident taking those guys again. But I think that they've lost some pieces of the secondary in this offseason.
Hmm.
Obviously, they lost Tariq Woolen, they lost Kobe Bryant. And I think that they could use another guy, a fresh body, a fresh guy in that room. So I think I'm gonna go with a cornerback here. I'm not taking Avion Terrell.
Hmm.
Didn't take Chris Johnson. I'm gonna take Chris
Nice.
Johnson. Um,
I
and
love
I
it.
don't know, man. Avion Terrell is probably higher on my big board, actually. I haven't really gotten the chance to fully evaluate him as far as his athleticism goes. He didn't participate in the pro day, so we didn't really get a chance to get all those athletic numbers. But as far as the production went, again, like the Clemson guys, he took a bit of a dip this year, and I feel like Chris Johnson's a better fit as far as like a outside man-to-man coverage corner. Because obviously you got Witherspoon, you got Spoon, who's going to be your kind of your nickel kind of slot coverage guy, and then you can bring in a guy like Chris Johnson, who's this 6 foot, longer arms, lengthier man-to-man coverage corner that you can put up against those kind of 1A receivers and feel confident that he's going to stay stride and stride with some of these guys and make plays on the ball. I got the chance to watch some of his tape, and I mean, he is such a controlled mover, it seems like. I feel
Yeah.
like as far as mirroring routes and just staying right on some guy's hip, Chris Johnson might be the top guy in this draft class as far as that goes. I mean, I feel like he is always stuck to the hip with some of these guys, whether it's across the field or just, comeback routes or out routes, in routes, whatever it is. I just think he's going to be a really good man-to-man coverage corner, a guy that you're going to trust throwing on a one level wide receiver, and you're going to be confident that he's going to be within stride and stride. So I think that
He,
this could be a good fit for them as far as outside corner goes. And surprising to not take Terrell, but I think Johnson might end up being better.
yeah, I kind of agree with you. It's funny. He plays a lot like Reek Woolen. Like
Yeah,
minus the,
he's a bit smaller as far as the
yeah,
measurables go, but he plays just like him.
yeah. I don't know what his wingspan is. His arms look so long when you're watching him play.
Hmm.
He gets his hand on a lot of balls, paws. Um, but I yeah, I really like Chris Johnson, and like I said, this is our mock draft, not what we think is going to happen. I think Terrell will go higher, but I'm with you. I'm a big fan of his game, so I think that makes a lot of sense for Seattle. And we
And
ended up going longer than we expected. Oh, go ahead.
yeah. Also, just one last thing on Chris Johnson, with a guy that kind of looks a little bit like Tariq Woolen, you'd be a little worried that he's not going to be a great tackler, and that's definitely not the case for Johnson. He's a very
Hmm.
physical player as well, and that fits what Seattle's trying to do. Obviously,
Yeah,
Devon Witherspoon was outstandingly physical, kind of an outlier there. And they SDSU ended up using Chris Johnson as a gunner on special teams. So that just shows you how much they trust him as far as tackling guys in open space. So
yeah. They've
physical
got
and yeah,
they've got him at only a 5% missed tackle rate, which is in the top 10% for all defensive backs, which is really good.
really
And
good.
then, he didn't really play in the slot at all. He was strictly an outside corner, playing pretty much 40% man, 60% zone, which is right kind of in line with what Mike
Mhm.
McDonald wants to do. So I think 93rd percentile pass breakup. I just think he's a really good and sticky player that'll make a lot of sense for Seattle.
Fits right in that Reek Woolen role. So
Yeah. All right. Well,
That's
That's the
about
full
it.
first round. We ended up going a lot longer than we expected,
Bird
but that was
rights.
Yes, sir.
a real tramway. Sorry. Um, but yeah, that's our mock draft.
Four Ohio State guys in the top seven,
Yeah,
man.
four Ohio State guys in the top seven, three Miami guys in the first
Yeah,
12
Miami
picks.
guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
But fan out of the Ravens. I like it. We will hopefully be back soon for some Ravens specific draft content. That should be fun to do. But any other
Possibly some
closing?
baseball content,
Yeah,
some
baseball
basketball
content
content.
hopefully soon. So, or not. We'll see. Oh yeah,
Yay!
go Birds, go Ravens. All right. Any other closing thoughts, Jason? Or are we good to go?
Love the Fano pick. Excited to see what's next. I mean, we got a little bit over a month, right? So
Yep.
Yep.
I think things are shaping up. The Crosby situation was terrifying. Free agency's been a little bit crazy, but we pivoted to Hendrickson so fast. So, I think the future is bright. I'm excited to see what Minter does with everybody. So
Yep.
once we get
Me
the
too.
draft picks in, we're moving forward.
Yep. And the
Yes,
Ravens
sir.
have. There's a lot of different ways we can go at 14. We'll have good players anywhere. So I'm
Yep.
excited. All right. Well, peace, y'all. Catch you next time.
Bird rights.